I'm excited about today's chat, you guys. We're going to be talking about why the Divine Mother matters in a matriarchy, which is a pretty interesting concept that might throw some of you off because you're maybe not used to thinking about it in this way. But hopefully by the end of the discussion, we're going to be able to really understand what we mean when we say that the Divine Mother has to be central to a matriarchal line of thinking. And I say we just go ahead and get going with it. So my question I want to ask everybody is, and I want you to think about this, but can a society ever truly become balanced if the earth itself is still treated like an object to consume? And I want you to really think about it, because this can get tricky really fast with, again, I start this off with letting you know there might be trigger words that we talk about here, or even terms or specific mindsets that you might think is coming from, one direction or another, when in reality, we need to strip away all of these false labels, all of these, well, she's a liberal and she's a conservative, and, all of it needs to get just stripped away in order for this conversation to really take root. Because honestly, this is the root of the entire conversation. Because if we can't, I believe that because of the way that the universe works, the way it functions, as above, so below, as within, so without, that what we're seeing is a physical manifestation of what's happening interior of each individual. When we, like we talked about a few weeks ago, when we have these open wounds that are not properly getting dealt with, we are starting to see it manifest outwardly. That's the moment when I believe it starts to manifest outwardly. So when we see the way that the earth is being treated, it's a direct mirror of the way that we as humans, as humanity, are being treated right now as well. And so by us doing small things to make sure that we are being in awareness of that at all times, we don't have to flip our whole life around, but the way that you do it is you at least just start with one thing, right? Like, I'm going to make sure that I'm recycling, or you're checking to make sure that the recyclings are actually going to the recycling, like they say, trying to keep on top of things that are important in your community, whether that just be going out and picking up the trash. I mean, it's crazy how something so small like that can be such a huge help, not just to the community, but I swear our Mother Earth feels that. She knows that. She can sense it when your energy is pure and it wants to just help, and it becomes reciprocated in a certain beautiful way. Do you agree with that, Jules, or do you have anything to add?
I do agree. And I think, maybe to clarify before we start, when we talk about Divine Mother and bringing that back into the conversation, I think a lot of people's brains will assume that we're talking about goddesses or any kind of religiosity. Oh, there's Shannon.
Yeah.
She says, duh, I'll be right there. Really what we're talking about is a perspective shift. Right? That when the Divine Mother idea has been taken out of the psyche due to patriarchal domination, and we need both, but when one eats the other, then we end up in this soup that we're all wading through. That wasn't very well worded, but I feel like
it's okay. We're both kind of at a slow start.
I was trying to do too many different things at the same time, invite people and check on Shannon and all the things.
But yeah, I agree. And so it's important, I think, because, and thanks for bringing it back around, but the mother aspect is what we're focusing on in this whole thing, because it's important to recognize when we have a patriarchy, we are constantly being inundated with this masculine energy all the time. Whether you believe in the patriarchy or not, it doesn't matter. The fact is, it's a male masculine energy that's very dominant. And when we don't get enough of that balance, surprise, another word that just keeps popping up, doesn't it? Everything is about balance. And that includes the outer as well as the inner. So if we're not receiving that feminine energy as well, that feminine quality to life, then it's imbalanced. We're not honoring the nature herself, the way that it's meant to be upheld by us. And I'm getting Shannon in here real quick as well. She's trying to pop in. I think I sent you an invite, Shannon. Yeah, so what we're saying isn't necessarily goddess worship. If you worship a goddess, fantastic. I'm not against that. I believe that God is both masculine and feminine, so you can call it God-is, God/this, but that's not what we're talking about essentially in this conversation. We're talking about that feminine energy of life itself. We have a very strong, prominent masculine energy present, but the feminine is missing. And the way that we bring that back is through these things that we're discussing. We're discussing like nurturing, taking care of, watching over, being good stewards, right? This isn't even to say that women are superior necessarily either. That's not even as well what we're not saying. What we're saying is that once the mother becomes honored, she is going to help bring that balance back to the earth. And again, like I said in the beginning, it's this intricate ecosystem that works with itself. So once we start expressing it outwardly, that we respect and honor this beautiful planet that we've been gifted to be stewards over, when we take that role seriously, I believe is when that energy starts to give back to us as well in a very beautiful way. Hi, Shannon. Welcome in.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So we
Sorry
were just,
about that.
It's okay. So we were just starting the conversation with asking if we truly believe that that we can find balance if we're not respecting the earth and continue to treat it like something to consume. I don't want to put you on the spot. You just got in here, but if you had a comment you wanted to add, go for it.
I think that's a no. Right. And I'll bring this into my clinical work. We just did a training with Gabor Mate about ADHD. And so the majority of my work is with children and just establishing states of nervous system regulation. And so ADHD we'll call it a disorder, and he really solidified this for me. What we see as ADHD or any behavioral dysfunctions in children is actually an adaptation to living outside of balance, right? And so a classroom setting is not a natural setting. So right. Children have to learn body management. They have to, meanwhile, their natural systems are going haywire, saying, no, I'm supposed to be playing right now. I'm supposed to be moving. I'm supposed to be doing things. So on a macro scale, I think that that's the same case. We see dis-ease happen because we live outside of balance, and that's not a matter of fault. You can have the most pristine diet, you can be doing everything properly. We're exposed to microplastics, we're exposed to things in our water, they're spraying things in the air. So that on a macro level automatically thrusts us into imbalance. So it's, we're in a catch-22 here. What can we do? I don't have any answers.
That's exactly where I wanted to take this conversation. Because the earth is the macrocosm, then your body is the microcosm, right? And we're treating our bodies the same way that we treat the earth through these patriarchal systems, right? Talk about energy. We're here patriarchal versus matriarchal, right? Patriarchal is extraction, it's conquest, it's taking from the land, not giving back much. And then that translates to our bodies in this system through burnout, through we're not feeding our bodies as well. My brain just went blank, but all of these different ways that we kill ourselves for the system, basically, because we're just a cog in the wheel. Whereas that matriarchal energy is more about stewardship and coming in and supporting the system while you're working, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about the sacredness of life and respecting that. I truly believe it. And understanding that life needs to be protected in order to continue. Like, these are all important aspects that are necessary. And also recognizing that we as humans are a part of nature itself. We're not separate from it. So, different ways that you can go about doing this in your own life would be honoring the seasons. It sounds so silly or so simple, but it only feels like that because you're just not used to it. But I can tell you, as someone who makes content every month about the full moon and the new moon, that has helped me become more cyclical in my seasoning, right? Like, understanding and revering the natural order that's created from this divine mother. And it's not just a deity archetype, right? Like, it's a worldview. It's a way to view the world. And that's what I think really needs to get shifted there, which is tough because that seems like it's a pretty big boulder to push up a mountain, right? I'd love to hear ideas from you ladies of ways that would become more possible for people.
I just have so much of the information from this workshop with WMC in the top of my head right now. So, we have the term discipline. And a lot of what I do with children is to establish discipline and boundary. Those are your two cornerstones to be getting into states of thriving. The root word of discipline is disciple. So we are all disciples of something. We can be disciples in alignment with our own need for homeostasis and listening to the needs of our bodies, it's a mix of all the things. But when we immediately wake up in the morning, pick up the phone and start scrolling, we then become a disciple of whatever consciousness is coming through this screen. Mm-hmm. And I think that more people can take a minute, 5 minutes at the beginning of the day to claim their own energy, to set intention for the day, to be present with their own being. That makes a monumental impact on the rest of the day. And it's little simple. In working with clients, I speak very much about micro adjustments because they're doable. When we try to make sweeping macro changes, people are not consistent in keeping up with those. And that's why people fail trying new things. Mm-hmm. So if the first minute or the first 5 minutes of your day is yours, that sets up all your body systems to be the disciple of your own thought processes and your own functionality. Mm-hmm. And I'll swear by that. That's a hill I'll die on. I will work with people and we'll be 6 months in and I'll be like, you're not doing your morning routine. Well, how do you know? I can tell because you're back in dysfunctionality again.
Right.
And that with children, especially, if we just wake up and put them in front of a screen while we're busy getting ready for the day, I have 30 kids on my caseload and their parents are working parents. They have 20 hours of screen time a week in front of a tablet. Well, that's what they're a disciple of. They're a disciple of YouTube. They're a disciple of moving their thumb. So you can either allow your child to create systems of functionality by learning how to be present in their own body and being, or this is going to exacerbate as time goes on.
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting too, because it's like, this is the point where the rabbit hole gets a lot deeper, right? Well, what is causing the parents to do that? And that comes from not having additional support, right?
Yeah.
like there's only one of me, and I can't be at two places at once. So what's the best of both options here? Like, what can I do? So I understand this is something I'm talking about a lot more too recently on my page, is the importance of understanding nuance. There is so much nuance to everything. It's not black or white. Everything resides in a very interesting shade of gray. That's what I say. And it's the truth. But that's where I think that these conversations can be helpful, is because it at least gets your brain to think, okay, well, now that I've identified the problem, now I can figure out what I need to do to fix this. And it could just be one small step, like Shannon was saying, like, well, maybe this week, instead of, the iPad, we're going to get a new board game and have her practice, hands on something while I'm getting ready, or this or that. And not everything might work, but the whole point is that at least you're trying, right? You're just trying new things. You're trying something different to get out of that kind of that rut that you've created for yourself of every day is the same. We're just going to work, paying the bills, and nothing ever changes, and it's just one day after the other, the same thing. But this is where it gets fun and challenging, is when you make those little micro adjustments to say, okay, I want to challenge myself today. Just for the hell of it, for fun, for funsies. Just say, I'm going to just try this. I'm going to try this differently today and see what happens. I'm one of the biggest fans of experimenting, if you don't know already from like my content, but I love experimenting, because the worst that can happen is you find out what does and doesn't work. That's it, And I think that the more that people are allowed to feel brave, feel safe enough, feel like they're in a safe enough space to become brave, to start doing more things that make them a little scared, maybe, that's when we're really going to start seeing, I think, a big shift. What do you guys think?
And I think you touched on something in there too, that we're lacking a little bit, that lack of community, especially amongst women. Mm-hmm. Right, the lack of resources. It reminded me of the story of this village that I had to study. I can't remember where it was. But every morning the women used to go down to the river and wash their clothes together. It was like this morning communal ritual. And then at some point, washing machines were introduced to the village. Mm-hmm. And so the women stopped going down to the river, and they found that like rates of mental illness, depression, things like that started to go up in this village as the women stopped going to the river. You don't think about the fact, like, to them they were just doing a chore, but you don't realize you're experiencing connection and belonging, just touching base with each other every day, and what that can do for your nervous system. So like, one of the things we can do is what we're doing right now. Right. Get together with women and have these conversations and do it regularly. Mm-hmm. We have so many, we've deprioritized community so much in our culture in favor of production and productivity and making it to work, that we're losing connection with some really basic things, mm-hmm. That seem so simple but make such a huge difference.
Yeah, I agree. Shannon, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, years and years ago, the word community came to me in a meditation, the root of it being come unity. It's an invitation, mm-hmm. right? Yeah. So if we invite that unified idea that we're all one, we're one people, one planet, we have been so segmented and separated. Imagine taking a forest and removing all the trees and saying, oh no, you get your own individual space now, and putting each tree inside a little container. The forest would be so diseased and disordered within, a few generations. The root systems are meant to bind together. The mycelium is meant to communicate together in the same way that women are meant to be together, and men. Creating food systems, creating, games where people are communally playing together, holding ceremony together. And we do those in such segmented ways now that we're looking at this from a lens of how can we fix people? No, we need to fix the system. And then that weaves back. It's all, these are all theories and ideas of how to reclaim functionality from a place of my thought systems are always paralleling natural systems. Mm-hmm. And no natural systems survive in individuation. There are all community networked systems, all interacting together. And this is why if people all moved away, the forest would reclaim a city in a 10-year period of time.
Yeah.
Because it's always in a state of reclamation and thriving. Mm-hmm. And this is why there are parts of the world that we have to be militant in keeping places protected. I think, as we talk about AI data centers and things like that, how do we put some resistance against the complete annihilation and destruction of natural systems in favor of capitalism and production and industry? Mm-hmm. And yeah.
Well, and I love what Jen is saying down here too in the comments, because you're absolutely right. I remember that back in 2020, it was like all of a sudden the world just like became a vibrant shade of green again. Like it was just beautiful when all the smoke was like not going into the ozone layer and the atmosphere and causing pollution during that time. Like it was beautiful. I remember living in Florida and just being like, oh my God, this. And I love it because it's a perfect example that we all have now. We all have it now. So if we ever need help to visualize what could happen, we have it. We've got it. We've got a great example of that. She also said something earlier too, which I plan on talking about a lot more, but Jen in the comments was talking about having a council of women or a council in general, like what we're doing here, to help shape the discipline and functioning the new governance of what a matriarchy would look like. And I do plan on going down that path one of these weeks coming up. I'm not sure which one it is, but we're going to dive deep into that, of like what it could actually look like in a matriarchy as opposed to what we're so used to. But I agree with you. We definitely need to get a different form of justice set in place again, because what's going on right now just isn't functioning. There's too many loopholes for people to take advantage of the system. And it's happening all the time now. It's unfortunate how rampant it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing that happened in 2020, going back to that era, is this blossoming of community, right? Like that's why TikTok became a thing, because everybody was stuck in their houses and so in search of people. I talked about this on my channel the other day. We had this, for a brief window of time, an understanding that we were all in this together, and everybody started learning at a faster rate than I've ever seen. Journalism blossomed in ways on these platforms than I have ever seen after being in that industry for 20 years. It's the intention, right? Like we knew what we were getting on here for. Mm-hmm. And as things sort of returned to normal, that intention got lost and we just sort of shifted right back into business as usual.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of scary how quickly it's shifted back, isn't it?
Yeah. Old habits die hard.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Nuance. So we need nuance. I wonder sometimes when I'm on the internet how capable people are of nuance these days.
It's tough. I've been trying to get people to understand nuance for a while now. I don't know what just happened. I'm sorry. I'm trying to...
We're all tired today, I can tell.
Yeah, like, oh, Jesus. Jesus, take the wheel. Okay, there she is.
Come back to the light, Carolyn.
The shift back is way worse in regards to division. Yeah, I agree. But I think this has to be said. I think that the more that we can understand the people who are on the other side of these algorithms, on the other side of these mainstream medias, the ones who are observing it, it's so critical that we understand that there is a psychological war happening all the time for your attention, for for your beliefs, for things that they want to give you certain narratives about certain things before you have a chance to find out the truth. So it is so important to also include that in what you just said there, because I truly believe most of the division we're seeing is coming from the mainstream media. Purposefully putting out stories that will pit people against each other. It's their MO. It's what they do. So if you can keep that in mind at all times, I think it can help you to really detach yourself from the emotional tug that it's trying to do with your heart space, right? And you're right, the algorithm does feed their beliefs, exactly. Like it's all set up like a well-oiled machine to just continue extracting from us. But then, that brings us back to the original point of this conversation. The same thing is happening to the earth right now. We're extracting from the earth and extracting and extracting, and very few of us are giving back. What I really love are those small businesses that have started up. I can't remember if you guys know which one it is, pipe in with that, but small businesses where like the more you purchase, the more trees they plant, right? Like setting up different psychological businesses in that way where it's functional, not just to you as a consumer, but also to the earth, right? Like we need more people like that moving forward, or people who are willing to donate a percentage of their income to, certain things that are important, do you guys have any comments on that?
Yeah. This is kind of looping. Sorry, I have a thing. Kind of looping all these things in together. Desiree, you just said something about how vibrant and green it got during 2020 as we were not like being so pollutive, right? The green is the predominant color that the human eye can see. And there are more shades of green than any other color in the entire color spectrum. So from that awareness, green is also the color of the heart chakra. When we are exposed to natural green in all its varying gradients, and this is my therapy office, I have tons of plants in here, that does something to the visual cortex of our eyes that allows our mind to stay in an open state of discernment. They use a green screen to create manipulation. If they're going to do CGI or something like that, it's because green is what we have the most ability to receive, and it's the most manipulatable. Mm-hmm. So if you think about the number of people who are not allowing their eyes to be exposed to natural green, they go from inside to inside with very little exposure to natural green, their ability to discern truth almost disappears. So think about the age of AI now and the things like that. Like I will send my son something and he'll be like, "Mom, that's AI." I don't know if they're more attuned to it or, what is happening as far as that. The general consensus is seeing is believing. But if we can be manipulated on a visual level, that really fucks with people's ability to discern things.
Right.
So I think we're in a phase of the human story. We're making sure that you are spending time exposing your eyes to natural settings, exposing your ears to natural sounds, breathing in clean air. So again, back to, are we in a state of balance with the earth? When we can be in natural systems, earth, air, fire, water, the sound of fire and the smell of it combined does something to a certain part of the brain that can't be recreated through any other means of human. Like it does something to a dopamine receptor in the brain, which is why we find campfires a specifically form of relaxing. So I think in the long-winded way there is, how can we look at the scope of our day and be like, how am I allowing natural systems to be a part of my day? How am I allowing myself to be exposed to something that is not man-made, where man's hands haven't touched it? And where can I bring more of that in? And I think in the seasons of spring and summer, this is a lot more accessible. But this is also part of why people experience seasonal depression. Green is gone, and we go into closed indoor systems. So that drop in dopamine and serotonin is very real on a brain chemistry level, and we can do our best to pull those things in natural ways.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And piggybacking off of what we're a little past it now, but you're talking about the mainstream media. I feel like, having worked in the media, that I should speak to that and posit that it actually goes much deeper than the mainstream media. That the media is responsive to us, right? The reporter's job is to focus on a problem, to focus on the problems that, hey, this is going on and here's what you should know about. And then the community is supposed to respond to that. But what we've gotten into is this habit of just consuming it and then going about our day. And there's no response to the problem. There's no accountability for the problem. We've lost our role in that in a lot of ways. And then you have these special interest groups that are kind of playing chess with the globe, essentially, that come in and flood the internet with their bots, with these misinformations to kind of, direct the conversation, and then they have more say than the people do, because the people stop engaging, right? So a lot of it is down to paying attention to what we want to pay attention to, right? Mm-hmm. The reason that they work that way is, sensationalism and violence and all this stuff. It keeps us engaged.
Mm-hmm.
We click on it, we engage with it, so they keep turning it out.
Right. Because at the end of the day, what they worry about the most is the money. Am I doing a good enough job to make a paycheck that's, functioning for me? And that's it. That's the problem, right? That's capitalism for you. That's how it functions. It doesn't care about emotions. It cares about your money. And where your money goes is where your attention flows, is how they see it. Or both, or vice versa. So at the end of the day, if the earth is not considered sacred, we will see domination always return, always. But if we can hold space for the earth, which in this term, we're speaking of the divine mother, right? Mother Earth. If we can hold space for her, honor her, respect her, be a steward of her, it's going to help in that micro macro relationship of it not returning as quickly, if not at all. Hopefully, that's the grand plan, right? It's completely shifting. But this honestly comes down to a personal responsibility. It's each of us individually making the choice to do it, and not doing it because it's trendy and because, finally there's somebody else talking about it. It's got to come from a place within your heart that wants to do good for the earth. You don't even have to have the rest of it figured out yet. Just start there, because I truly believe spirit is involved in that, and spirit's going to lead the way for you the rest of the way. One thing will lead to another. One decision will lead to another decision. And before you know it, you're going to look back and say, this is a completely different life from where I was before. And it all just starts with one simple choice. Because when life loses,
reaching out, right?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So that divine mother is reaching out. We can see it all over the place.
Yeah.
The rise of witches.
Yes.
Is a documented phenomenon in the face of civil unrest. The numbers tend to go up, and you start, when you're scrolling through and you see all of these people talking about, like, Hecate reached out to me today, or pick your goddess. That energy wants to be heard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it does too. I think that it's not even a matter of choice anymore. Like she's screaming at this point, which is good. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to watch. I'm not gonna lie. Like it's powerful to see. Because when the earth herself loses her sacredness, what ends up happening is efficiency becomes your god, right? It's no longer about just being in reverence. It's about being efficient, being efficient. Again, it goes back to that capitalistic mindset, the patriarchal mindset, that you have to always be producing to have any type of self-worth. And it's not true. The more that we're able to slow down and be in peaceful rest with nature herself, the more you begin to regulate. Like Shannon was saying, you become more regulated. So what we're talking about here today isn't just to like blow smoke up your ass. This is like legitimate therapy, like the original therapy. This is the stuff that helps. Profit becomes your morality. You have to keep making profits. Exploitation becomes normalized, as we know, unfortunately. And all of this stuff, these are all the symptoms that everyone's wanting to see changed. What's interesting to me is that it all ties back to the same root. And that's the root we're talking about here today. Because if it's built on extraction, if this whole system is built on extraction, eventually there's not going to be anything left to extract. And that's going to be a sad day. I know that we're getting really close to that point right now, with the plastics and the oceans and the oil spills and this and that. It's like all these things. That actually just reminded me of something that I wanted to go back to, Jules, that you were just talking about. But oh crap, I lost it again.
Well, I mean, that's really like the basis of the Lorax,
Yeah.
Lorax, yeah. They all create these needs, these things they think they need. And, they're cutting down all the truffula trees and all that stuff until there's nothing left except for the single seed. And, do we need to get to that point over and over and over again in our historical repetition of fucking up the earth? I live in New England in an old mill town. You still can't step in our rivers because the riverbeds are so deeply polluted, right? Mm-hmm. So, here we're only like 3 generations out, 4 generations from the Industrial Revolution. And yet it's because that disconnect. And, I remember in the 90s, there was a spot in my town that was like where people would go. It was a giant hole that you could dump your motor oil in. Like you just changed your oil. You just pull up, just dump it in. It's fine. Yeah. Right? And now, I went to high school. There was the dump and then my high school and then a cemetery. And so like being sandwiched in between the two of those, most of the people that I went to high school with in like a 20-year window either have cancer or an autoimmune disease, because we were literally downhill from a giant gaping hole in the earth where everybody just threw everything because it just disappears into the nothing once you bury it. And, so where does that mindset show up in the here and now? Because we definitely didn't transcend it or become more educated on a grander scale. We just shifted it. So where are we doing that? Where is that disconnect happening on a larger scale? And, unless we aggressively and actively set up clear boundaries for ourselves in respecting those natural systems, I don't know. There are more of us than there are of them. So, I think it comes down to so many people feel disempowered. Well, what could I possibly do? And yet it's in doing nothing that allows them to continue creating these systems of dysfunction.
Right. And it's also, again, it comes back to our personal responsibility. Like if we want to change this whole world without waiting on the systems, the governments, then the place to start is with yourself. And it's about being radically accountable to yourself and to the earth and to the future you want to see. You know, for those of us who are mothers, we want to see it for our children, but for those of us that aren't mothers, we, you know, like Jules, for example, she still wants to see it for the future because it's important. Everyone on this planet deserves a good chance at this life. And right now, the way that things are set up, we can see it clearly. It's not working. It's not giving the people what they need. There's only certain ones at the top who are getting all the greatness of enjoyment of this life that we're all meant to enjoy. So I think it's good that we're having these conversations, and it can feel overwhelming. But if you remember that you're not alone, I think that can help. You know, you're not. There's so many people all across the world. Even here, we're representing 3 different time zones, and they are out there. We are all out there. We just haven't figured out how to form a group yet, which is another whole rabbit hole conversation that I don't want to go down today, but but I would love to discuss that further. Like, we really have to get it figured out, guys. Like, because no one else is going to do it for us. We're not waiting for Jesus to come back down and save us. We're not. The whole message was, you have the power. It's in your hands. And that belongs to each of us. Sorry. Hate to be the bearer of the good news here, but it's your responsibility. It's all of ours. And again, it goes back to small little things. Don't feel like you have to carry the whole world on your shoulders. That's what I was going to say. I remembered now, Jules. We were talking about the oil spills and all this stuff. We have to also remember, everyone, that we were never meant to consume this much news about the world. We were never meant to hold so much about everything in the world at once. We just live in a very interesting generation now where we have access to all of the news happening all over the world at all times. That can become a really dangerous trap. If you're not careful with that, you can get stuck in that loop of like, I have to keep up to date. I have to keep up to date. And it's not natural for your body to go through that, for your mind to go through that. So, I mean, when I talk about creating challenges for yourself, right, this could be a really good one where you say, I'm only going to focus on what my local news is telling me is happening about my community, and leave it there. If it's anything that's super important that you're supposed to know about, it will get trickled down to your community level. But you have to start guarding your mind, protecting it. And I fully believe this, that the more that you start doing that for yourself, again, it's going to start emanating outward in the world as well. First, the world around you, and eventually it will grow. Because again, each of us are doing this in our own little pockets of the world. And if you think of this energetically, the way that I see it is, energetically, we've got, let's say Jules, for example, over there in Texas, her biofield. It's a real thing. We all have one, and it emits your unique energy frequency. When she has a full heart, when she feels like she's done something that's helped the earth that day, it expands her heart, it expands her biofield, which then attracts other people who are now within her field to feel the resonance of Jules's biofield. And that will be contagious for the next person and the next person. And all of a sudden, before you know it, the whole world is lighting up with this beautiful love energy. And it's a real thing. It can actually happen. Just by you doing your part, you being contagious in your own community, in your own world. Biofield tuner here. Yeah.
I'll back you up on the consuming the media thing. Since I was a reporter for 20 years, still today, people assume that I know everything about everything that's going on, and I'm keeping up with all the things and the global politics and stuff. And so I'll get messages like, what do you think about XYZ? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I haven't read about it.
Right.
You know,
right.
Because I can't do anything about Turkey. Turkey's got to do something about Turkey, you know,
right.
Things like there are limitations. I try to stay informed, and I wouldn't say that we're not designed to know about the problems of the whole world. I think we probably are, because we're transitioning towards an era where we see ourselves as a global community and understand that we're all connected in that way. But like you said, you've got to deal with your own backyard first. I see so many people that are consuming all of the world's problems every day, and they're all twisted up about it, but they don't even know the names of their own city councilors. What's going on in your community? What can you do something about? And we're talking about, recultivating this connection with the earth. And for those that maybe missed the last live, one of the reasons that we're talking about that is because this patriarchal domination started when we started monkeying with the earth. It started with agriculture, and when suddenly we had ownership of the land, and suddenly men had to care about who their heirs were, because they wanted somebody that they could pass down their land to. And from there, it just went, snowballed and went on and on. So your connection, our connection right now with land has become ownership, and what can we do with it? What can we extract from it? When matriarchal connection is more about stewardship and living in harmony with it. And that includes the harmony of the information that you're consuming. If you're really, really concerned with problems that are happening 200,000 miles away, but are out of harmony with what's happening in your own backyard, you've lost the plot.
Right. 100. Shannon?
Yeah, well, there's so many nuances here threading into my brain. Our nervous systems, that's what it comes down to. What can my nervous system hold and function within, right? And so I'm just thinking back to, I was very hesitant to starting an account on this app, and I did it as kind of like a dare. But the thing is, like, you all have more followers than I do, but I got like 10,000 followers within like the first 2 weeks that I was making content. And I don't know, I hit that 10,000 wall, and I felt 10,000 threads of connection to me. And all of a sudden it felt so overwhelming. I felt like this sense of obligation to be feeding something to those 10,000 human beings. And I actually opened the app one day and I had a panic attack as I went live. I had to shut it off because I did most of my content in the first year in the fall. It was so hard for me to just be in a space like this and be doing it, because I felt bombarded. So back to what you said, Desiree, about the Hawkins field of consciousness, when we are in nervous system regulation, and that becomes a magnetic resonance that we're radiating out, and that affects something like 25,000 people, right? So if I choose instead not to be obligated to be feeding the 10,000 people or 45,000 people now that are connected to me, but rather I choose to send out. Right. I'm just sending out a vibration. I'm sending out a thing, and I'm not giving people access to anything about me beyond that. This goes back to the news and consuming things and all of those things. We have to get much better about shielding and protecting our own sovereign energy fields, and beginning from it. Am I here and present in my own body? Can I ripple out into my home? Is everything functioning in my home? Is everything functioning in my yard, in my neighborhood, in my community? If we start in the morning and jump out immediately into the world, there we go. Immediate nervous system dysregulation, and now we're a disciple of a million other thoughts, ideas, and feelings, right? So, I don't know that has any clear sense of statement here, but also I have to dip out early because I have a client in crisis. And so I'm going to have to go and address that, because this is the work of a therapist.
You're good.
So thanks.
Right.
Yeah. I will see you all next time. And yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Go get go be a superhero. Love you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
But yeah, I do agree with that. I think it's super fascinating how all of these things connect. They really truly do. I saw a video recently that I loved. It was a woman talking about how she went to some kind of expo with a bunch of nurses, trained professional nurses, RNs. Is that what they're called? Sorry. But in this conference, they were talking about what is one thing that our medical field, current medical field, is not embracing, or what is the one problem that you come across the most, something along those lines. And she said that she witnessed so many women nurses' hands going up saying, there is no discussion, but we all know it exists. The connection to autoimmune disorders and the mental load that the person is holding, the actual trauma, the physical, emotional processes that never happened are now feeding an autoimmune disorder. And it's amazing to me. I loved that video because it's something that we know. We already know. People like Jules and I, we've talked about this until we're blue in the face, and people just call us spiritual woo-woos. It doesn't matter, but it's the truth. It's the truth. And even the nurses are now admitting that there's certain things that modern medicine just isn't going to be able to help with. It's got to be an individual making the decision to do the deep shadow work, to go to the therapist, or to see a spiritual coach, or whatever it is that your path requires you to do, but to do it. That's the most important part, because we are holding those traumas in our physical body, and that creates its own manifestation outwardly, whether it be through your own body, through your own autoimmune disorders, or it be through physical things that are happening in your life that feel chaotic and like out of nowhere or whatever. It's usually spirit trying to talk to you, trying to tell you, hey, you got to look at this wound. You've got to look at it. You got to clean it out. You got to use alcohol. It's going to burn. Let's clean this out, let's get this healed. Jules, do you have anything you'd like to add before I open the floor?
I mean, just piggybacking off of that, I don't want people to get the idea that you can shadow work and therapy your way out of compound trauma. Right. And a lot of this is genetic, epigenetic memory. It's passed down from trauma from our ancestors. So they're kind of close to my heart right now. For those that don't know, I'm wearing a wig because I'm dealing with a bout of alopecia, which is an autoimmune thing that I probably developed from going back to journalism and trying to be too much to everybody. And I'm somebody that's very practiced at regulating my nervous system and, meditating and doing all of the things. This is a community issue. Mm-hmm. You cannot heal everything in your body alone. Right. You have to heal through relationship too. You have to heal through community. You need those resources. So yes, do your own work, take accountability, but also know that there's a limit to that too. Right. And nobody gets there alone.
Right. And I love that you added that, because it's so true. It is, at the end of the day, a collective response. Does it start with you individually? Yes. But like she's saying, at some point, and I talk about this a lot too, the difference between lone wolf medicine and wolf medicine. There is a period of time that you're meant to be isolated to really figure out what's going on in here. But then there's always a moment of time after that follows where you're meant to return to the pack. You're meant to return with all of the goodness that you've received during this lone wolf season. Because the interconnectedness is important, because we are all connected. We absolutely are. So we're going to go over just a little bit longer today. If anybody wants to hop on, go ahead and send me an invite, and you are welcome to join us before we finish up today's discussion. I'm just going to give you guys a few minutes to do that if you'd like to. But here's some ways that we can keep it practical about honoring the earth, okay? These are so simple. You're going to say, I know these already, but we're going to say them anyway, just to keep it fresh in your mind. Growing your own food. If you're not good at it, the only way to get good at it is to do it. You got to just practice it. Start with some herbs, maybe. Start small if you need to, but grow some food. Learn the patterns, the seasons of the plants. I mean, it's important. It's important to really have that connection. Caring for your local ecosystems, right? Reducing unnecessary consumption as well. Watching what you purchase, even down to the packaging. Like if it comes down to two different sets of razors, let's say, and one comes in a cardboard packaging and one's in plastic, get the cardboard. Same thing with what we were talking about earlier about the businesses. Find the small businesses that are giving back to the earth with every purchase that you make. That way you are a part of that. That's helping the world to thrive by supporting these small businesses. Support your local farms, obviously, as well. If you have a farmer's market in your area, shop for your vegetables and fruits there instead of the grocery store. These are all important things. And we all, you might have a moment in your brain where you're like, well, it doesn't matter. What does little old me have to do to make a difference in this big old world? But honestly, if everyone's thinking that, then therein lies the problem. You've got to go support the people. You got to support your local communities. Another way is teaching children to have reverence for nature as well, right? It goes back to, again, I come from a place of being a full-time single mom. I don't have all the time in the world. I have moments and I have days where I cry my eyes out because of how much I still have to work in order to be a stay-at-home mom, which is so incredibly important to me. It's so tough, but I do it. I do it because it means something to me. It's important to me. I believe it's important to my daughter's future. And when you keep these things in mind, it doesn't necessarily make it easier, but it does make it possible to keep going, is what I'll say. Sorry, it's asking me to put the puzzle piece.
If you don't know where to start or how to connect, pay attention to the indigenous cultures. They know what they're doing. We're largely regurgitating what they already know.
Yeah. Michelle, I'm going to address your comment there real quick. My idea of that is that it's true. We are all mirrors of each other. Sometimes you really like the mirror and you feel happy about it. You feel seen by the universe when you find something special in someone else that you see in yourself. But then sometimes we also don't like the mirror. Sometimes we're seeing something in someone else that either you used to be and you're not anymore, which can be a really interesting revelation, or you're seeing something in someone else that you haven't recognized in yourself before, and so you attack it. These are natural responses, I guess I would say, that our brains have, but it doesn't mean that has to be where it ends. The whole goal is to explore that idea, right? Explore where that's going. If someone's rubbing you the wrong way, be challenging to yourself enough to say, all right, why? Why is this bugging me so much? What is it about this person or this idea that it's just like rubbing me the wrong way, And you'll find deeper under those layers, you'll find exactly why. Whether it's, someone told you something when you were young and you believed it and you didn't realize that's been a subconscious belief even up to now, or whatever the example might be.
And I would say that a lot of who you attract into your life, regardless of the connection, has a lot to do with resonance, internal resonance. And there's something in them, even if you don't like them, that resonates with you.
Yeah, I agree. Hi, Jen. Welcome in.
Hi. I'm so glad that you opened this up for discussion. I didn't know you were going to do that.
Yeah, we try to do it at the end of every live.
It's my first time catching you live, so
cool.
thanks for
Well, welcome.
Thank you. So I just wanted to comment and just show my gratitude for you opening up the discussion for these types of conversations. I think it's really important for all of us, women especially, to be looking at these ways that we can take on some of these roles in our lives, especially women of a particular age, I feel. And those of us that have longer wisdom, I guess, behind us, and we've seen patterns over time, and I think it's important that our voices are come together, and that we figure out different ways that we can share our individual voices, because I think we've been going through an alchemizing process as women for quite some time now, and I know that. For me personally, it's been a process for me personally since like 2020, really deeply, but where we're just taking a look at every little thing that we do in life and what did it stem from. I think some of us that have been doing the work on healing ourselves for this time have really done some magnificent alchemizing transformation. And I think it's time for us to, we're moving on from that time where we were doing all that alchemization. And now it's time for us to step into our roles.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I'm trying to hide her face.
It's time. I feel it's time. And I appreciate you creating a space for women to be able to have these conversations. Well, for everyone to be able to have these conversations, but particularly women.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is time. I think we all think it's time. I think we all know it's time, because I believe that's spirit talking to each of us individually, saying it's time. I really believe that, because I mean, that's why this whole space was created in the first place, was because there was a lot of energy and momentum behind something that didn't have a clear structure yet. And so my vision for even doing this was to start to build that vision, start to create it, put the bricks in place one by one, so that we can all walk away with that vision, saying, all right, now I know what's possible. Now I know what my steps are to help in this, what I can do to make sure this is created. So thank you. Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it.
We all need to come back to the river and wash our clothes again.
Yes.
That's what we're doing.
Seriously.
I agree. We should just make it like a thing. I love that idea. I really do.
Well, and I think too that's what it comes down to also is ceremony. Somebody mentioned doing something in ceremony before. Yeah. And I think that is just so important for us as women to have that community. You spoke of there's a time where you're a lone wolf for a while, and then you need to come back and be in the pack again. Mm-hmm. And I feel that is where, oh my God, I just lost my train of thought, but you know where I'm going. You feel what I'm saying.
That's where a lot of us are right now. Yeah. We've spent the past probably 6 or 7 years alone in isolation since 2020. And I think now it's starting to, a new momentum is starting to build, where people are ready to start walking down that path again, because we're lonely, we're tired, we don't want to do it alone anymore.
Right. And I remember I was talking about ceremony, and it just seems that there's just been this calling for that. And I live in a small community. I live in between 2 small towns. Each of them has one of them has a population 700, the other one has a population 2,000, and I'm in between them both. And I have a small biofield tuning practice there that I do, and I also do sound baths. But I'm starting to, I want to have a yurt on my property. I have property out here. It's beautiful. I have 30 acres, and I want to have a yurt and have a space for women to just meet and commune and have ceremony and all this. I'm just so excited about it. I'm getting ready to start posting about it on socials and things. And I just put up something on my website about it, but and that's hyper local. That's really hyper local. How did I end up in this tiny little space?
What state are you in, Jen?
I'm in Minnesota.
Minnesota. Oh, I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
we've got some interesting things we're going on behind the scenes. But
You
I
saw
love
us
that.
start
It's
like beaming. We
yeah, we're listening.
I know it's so fun.
Um,
But
but
these are the things, right? Sorry, please go ahead.
no, yeah, exactly. This is it. I truly believe this, you guys. Spirit is going to inspire each of us individually on ways that are going to help. As long as you're open to listening to it and hearing it, your path is going to get laid out in front of you perfectly. And you'll know. You will know. You're going to take one step forward and recognize, "Oh, this is working out. This feels good. It's comfortable in here." The next step is going to lead it. It's going to open up in front of you. And you say, "Oh, I guess this is where I'm supposed to go next." And you just keep following Spirit's breadcrumbs. You're going to get to the place that's going to be beneficial for so many people. Like for you, for example, I love that you're doing that because it reminds me of Field of Dreams. You know, if you build it, they will come. It's the truth. You're manifesting it right now just by taking one step in front of the other. And that's beautiful. That's what I'm hoping to inspire in anyone who listens to our lives. Because we all do have the opportunity to do something, even if it's small. Start out small, allow it to be small, allow it to be new, allow it to be something you've never done before. And you might feel embarrassed. You might feel like you look dumb doing it. Who cares? Do it. We all had to start somewhere. And I think at the end of the day, that's that powerful energy that a lot of people I think are feeling right now. It's that ignition of a small flame that's starting to warm up in their heart chakra space. And it's going to grow. It's just going to keep growing. I really believe that. So thank you for sharing, Jen. Jules, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we close up today?
I mean, just that we've experienced that ourselves in kind of following the instinct to follow these ideas, right? This little live itself started with, hey, we're going to do a thing, and this is what we're going to do. And then through that, you and I ended up realizing that we were in very similar places in life, and we'd been lone wolfing it for too long, and these little synchronicities start to fall into place. Just follow the excitement of your soul.
Yeah.
And the little tugs that it gets in these matriarchal directions. There's a reason. There's a reason.
Yeah. And I believe that spirit is creativity. Creativity is a spirit itself. It's a muse, and it's a frequency. And either you're up there, you meet it, but if you don't, that's okay, because it's still flying by, and someone else over here is going to pick up your idea. So either you grab it when it comes to you, or just recognize that, like, you know, it won't. Creativity, the muse, it doesn't wait for us to be ready. It says, here's the idea, run with it, or I'm going to run anyway. You hop on this train or not. It's up to you.
The number of times I have had a story idea and thought, I'll do it later, and then it'll pop up in pop culture somewhere, like the exact thing that I was going to.
People will call me crazy, but this happened with a Brandy song back in like 1997.
Yeah.
I was young. I was like 12 years old, 12 years old, but I wrote a song with a melody and lyrics and everything. A little while later, that song's popping up on the radio. And I'm like, what? not exact song, but pretty darn
Hey, there's
close.
Tony.
Hey, Tony. You made it at the very end. We're done now. If you want to, you can hop in and say something real quick. Jules, if you still have time, we can hang out another couple minutes. Otherwise, we were actually closing up.
I don't have anything to do today.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. Tardy to the party. Typical. So Tony is one of the guys, we're getting a little extra today. Tony was one of the guys that I invited specifically to whenever he had the chance to hop on, because I'd love to hear some more of his perspective. Yes, he is a man, but yes, he also agrees that something similar to a matriarchy is pretty inevitable, or hopefully possible.
Yes, he is a man, but we'll invite him. I mean,
he is a man, but we appreciate his support. Welcome in, Tony.
Oh, the big screen?
It's
Dang.
you.
Now, see, this part don't feel right, though. I feel like I should probably be in a little window for this.
Oh, all right.
I appreciate you inviting me to these conversations. Thank you. I appreciate that. I love conversations about egalitarian societies and how we get there, I think, to weigh in on like the matriarchy versus patriarchy conversation, I think what I'm frustrated with is you two know me. Like the crux of my content is that whether we're talking about pharaohs and slaves, kings and peasants, and 99 and 1%, it seems that the treasury, the bearers of gold, and the wealthiest merchants always get to be the loudest ones in the ruling power's ear. And that's the part I want to talk about. And I want the populace to see that in a very clear, visceral, and raw way. And I think that the gripes about what people would call patriarchy and what we could identify as patriarchy, systems of supremacy, and all these things, like they get close, but the message always ends up being diluted. And we miss that main thing that it's like for thousands of years, if you can dangle the carrot in front of someone, no matter who they are, where they're from, or what their title or status is, they will betray the people. They will betray the common people for the interest of those who are the gold bearers. And I just don't ever want that message to be missed. And oftentimes in these civil conversations, I just find that we miss that mark over and over again because we end up vilifying people who it's like, well, that's close to the target, but it's not the whole target. And the target isn't just people like that. It's just people like that are also in the group of people that I'm trying to address. And it tends to be frustrating for me because then it's like we spend years in discourse and conversation in papers and books and podcasts about these other issues that are important. But it's like, while we continually do that, this thing for thousands of years has just gone unchecked and unnoticed by the populace. And I don't want people to suffer under those systems. Men, women, any color, any creed or religion or ethnicity, I don't think it's right. But the reason, to me, and I could be wrong about this, the reason that we are made to suffer is because those who are in power are corruptible. And they may want different things, but somebody has those things and somebody can manipulate them over and over again. And the complacency of the people allows it. And the supremacy of the people allow it. We love to feel better than one another. And it's old. It's an old feeling. And as long as we're ignorant to those people who would make us suffer and who they actually are and what their names are, I fear that we're doomed for another 6,000 years of this shit.
Yeah. Well, you are late, but that's what we were talking about actually a lot earlier as well, was the fact that we are being programmed to be pitted against each other. And it's super important to recognize that, because if we don't, then we're not looking at the correct enemy here. The right enemy is the one behind the curtain, right? The Oz. Mm-hmm. It's not your brother or your sister or your neighbor or the guy over in Iraq or whatever. Like it's not, there's something behind that. In the spiritual world, we call that the powers and principalities, right? It's this big umbrella spirit that's hovering over the whole thing. And when you can recognize that, it's like that movie, I forgot what it's called, but the guy puts on the glasses and he sees the world for what it really is. What is it called? They're here, or they see us, or I forgot the name of the movie.
Forever since I've seen that.
But that's what it's like. It's like once you see it, you can't unsee it. And all of a sudden, you are not looking at that person as an enemy anymore. Hopefully, you're seeing them for the nuance of it, which is they're being controlled in a way that they just haven't recognized yet, which allows a lot of grace for people too. Hopefully. We want to be graceful with people, but I think the issue we're facing right now is seeing a lot of it come to a head, right? Like there's a lot of anger and aggression in the world for the way that people are being treated. And it gets tricky because we don't want to blow the world up. We don't want to do that. but we do need to be heard. There is a necessary space that needs to be created for those grievances to be aired out so that the community can come back together again. So yeah, I mean, I agree. It's a very nuanced conversation, and it's there's a lot. There's a lot to it.
Can I pose a question?
Yeah.
Maybe to you two and just the panel in the chat. It's like I've been in this particular conversation for decades now about society and civilization structuring and how it all works. And it's like when we talk about the system being broken, the human mind tends to think of a car. The carburetor is broke, so you fix the carburetor, and thusly the car should run effectively. If your computer's running slow, it may be malware or antivirus. You run the scan, you delete the file, the computer should run more efficiently. But you know what we're talking about here is not a system. Like there isn't a piston that's misfiring. There isn't a flat tire. It is the behaviors of human beings. And for thousands of years, there's been a lot of different methods and modalities and approaches to how do we fix human behavior. Like this is something people do. And I'm not, and oftentimes when we have this deep philosophical conversation, like I get stuck because oftentimes we're like, well, capitalism or patriarchy or communism this, and we start using isms and archies and things like that. And it's like, they're useful, but they don't actually address what we're actually talking about, because systems are just ideas that are brought to life by the people who represent them. This is human behavior. And I'm not sure we've been given a proper solution or step forward for how do we course correct the things people think and do. And is it even our place to do such things? Is it possible to do it without force? Can we inspire people to move differently? And if that's true, then how do we do that? And what's the alchemy of that? You know, I guess that's my question.
Yeah.
I think that's why we're talking about patriarchy and matriarchy in terms of energy, right? Energy that creates value systems. So to go back to your analogy where you dangle the carrot in front of somebody, that's a value that has been created by the patriarchy based on domination and conquest, tells you to get your bag. So that's more important than, common sense, because it's what we're raised with, right? It's what we're being inundated with. And we're talking about it in terms of that, just like a car, these energies are out of balance. We're leaning more towards one than we are the other, when really they're supposed to work in tandem, right? Like your car's also not going to work if you don't put gas in it, So I think it's both. I think we're living in this energetic system that's like patriarchal ideas are up here and matriarchal down here, and the idea is to kind of bring them back into harmony. And that's a foundational way of thinking, right? We're stuck in a foundation that is extracting all of our resources and giving nothing back to us.
Yeah. And I think that's also why we started this chat as well, is because that's the whole point of this, is to help create that vision for people who are not, who know that they want something different, but they don't know what that is. And what this is all about is, because I'm a huge believer in that if you don't have a vision of what you're looking for in the future, it's going to be impossible to manifest it. But if you do have the ideas, if you do catch on to these small little things, which again was a big part of our conversation today, was what small, tiny steps can you take in your own life that you can feel good about, even if it's not broadcasted to the whole world, but you chose to do something different today, and allow those to start compounding upon themselves. So that, today I'm choosing to do it this way instead of that way. And then a week from now, that's going to become your new habit, which is then going to create new circumstances in your life. And that's how it honestly works, is it starts in the small, in the micro, for us to begin to see it in the macro.
I totally agree. I find myself like I'm in agreement. You know what I mean? Like, I know that it's those small actions, but again, it's like, this is a way, I keep trying to find a better verbiage for it. This is a way of life. Like 300 years ago, the things that a mom and dad would pass on to their children of like, when you wake up in the morning, this is how you survive. This is what you do. This is what life means and death means and opportunity and bounty and harvest. And what we're telling kids now is Amazon, DoorDash, and we see this as benign, banal. This is just the way it is. This is just what we do. And maybe we create systems that look more like that, but benefit the people. But again, what we're asking people to do is change their behavior. And that is, there's tons of D-class documents on how we do that. And they're not all great on how to change behavior, you know? And so I'm left with this, like this really deep philosophical quandary of like, I'm with you. And if we want to call it matriarchy, fucking party on, sister. Like I'm down for whatever. But I know fundamentally first, before any of these things happen, what we're talking about is a fundamental shift in the way that we live our lives, what it means to survive. And I feel like we're a few steps removed from systemic replacement. I think those micro things that you're talking about, those little decisions every day, they do matter. But oftentimes they're framed through like the mission lens of some hyper-specific thing. Like we're not talking about shifting society on a whole. It's like, well, no microplastics or no Amazon. And they're these very hyper-specific things. But I guess I'm just having trouble understanding how any of these egalitarian movements are actually going to make a case that's strong enough to end the division, form those bonds, and get people like believing that like my actions make civilization possible. I don't think people understand the weight of their daily choices. And, I've been in this fight for a long time, and I appreciate you guys having me here and letting me vent because, I wish I had the answer, because we could all sit here. We're all very smart. And I know that we could make a system, make the rules, who's in charge of this and what happens on this date every single year. And this is how the votes are tallied and what type of policies. And we could do all that. But none of it matters if we're not changing the fundamental habits of human creatures, because it is those habits, those tiny little micro habits multiplied by 350 million or however many people are here, that form reality. Without those daily choices that they make, like reality would be what, And right. So I guess I'm just in this very strange place of like, how do we, as Jedi, for lack of a better term, how do we actually get people to move differently?
Well, we here in the Wolfmothers Council, we have started to call it the natural order. Because again, matriarchy, patriarchy, those are terms created under a patriarchy. So you're obviously going to be seeing it through that filter. When in reality, what we're actually saying is it needs to be returned back to the natural order. And I think that creates, even in itself, subconsciously, a new vision in a person's mind when they hear that versus matriarchy. I also think that it really is, again, comes down to understanding how community is formed, how it progresses. And what I know you see a lot of in the political realms, right, Tony, is that when they want to create something new, let's say a new agenda, how do they do it? All of a sudden, you've got 5 different networks talking about it on the same day. So they're literally creating the culture by not shutting up about it. And I think that's where we have to be. That's why we're doing this every other Friday. That's why, I think we're hearing a lot more women open up and saying this is what they want. And I really believe that when we start seeing even more of that as the culture, it's going to grow. It's going to grow. There's no stopping it. That's my personal opinion and belief on it. This is something that in the spirit has already begun its momentum. We are either going to hop on that train or not. It's up to us. But the train's moving, right? And I think that if we can just take our mental notes from how they are producing the culture, then we can have a successful chance at this. We need to start getting to the people who have production companies or who are able to have their own channel that's successful and it's, in alignment with everything that we agree with, magazines, newspaper prints, journalists, right, Jules? Like people who have the skill sets but are deeply committed to this idea. I believe that that's where we can really get some groundwork. Because again, it goes back to our first conversation about this on the very first meeting we had. We all have a job to do, and each one's job is different. So if we can all get into alignment with what our original job is, our unique job, I should say, that's going to help it all create this well-oiled machine that we want to see working.
Yeah, I feel like you and I have very similar backgrounds and frustrations because we've been so involved in community and city council meetings and all of the things. Like we've been deep in the machine and we can see how it works and we can see who's pulling the strings and we can see how easy it would be to move the needle if more people came to the table, right? And I think what we're missing is, or what we're feeling the lack of is a lack of creation and community. I think the only way we get to where you want to go is to recreate a sense of belonging and a sense of ownership of our home, right? And we're so disconnected from each other that, you can inspire everybody to come down to a city council meeting to fight a data center, right? But you can't inspire them to come to the city council meetings simply because they care about each other, because they own this community and they want it to thrive, right? Mm-hmm. Like we've lost that sense of we belong here because we're so divided in these individual things and we're stuck in analysis and we're stuck in deconstruction and we haven't shifted to this place where, okay, but where do we want to be? What do we want to live in? What's the creation here? That's and right. I think until we get on that same page, I think we're in that process of deciding who do we want to be and what kind of place do we want to live in, and we're just not quite there yet.
Yeah, I agree.
Such a spot on thing. It sparked, like, I got a download while you were talking about that, and it's like, if you're involved in politics, you see a lot of people asking and demanding about what they want. You gave me the big window again. Damn it! Mm-hmm. It's the ladies' chat. God damn it! It's like. They talk about what they want, and it reminds me as a music instructor, people are like, oh, I want to be able to shred like Eddie Van Halen, but they don't practice. They don't do anything. It's like nobody wants to act, and that's the part. And you said we're stuck in analysis and deconstruction, and it makes me, again, the music analogy is like that band standing in the garage being like, let's form a band. Okay, well, like, what kind of band is it? Is it like postmodern, or is it like shoegaze? Is it like blues driven? Is it like metal or like hardcore metal? And it's like, you just start fucking playing and that shit'll work itself out. You don't get to decide. You just start acting and moving and building and creating. But I feel like one of the big things is this disenfranchisement of the human spirit. And I think we kind of touched on it a little bit, the three of us, is like, people don't even feel like it's like there's a reason to. Like, there's no reason to save the republic. There's no reason to act because it's all screwed anyway. And even in the chat here, I saw, hey, this goes higher than our government. There are forces at play, forces of evil bigger than this. And perhaps you're right. But that's not a good angle because it breaks the human spirit and it makes us feel apathetic and hopeless. It makes us feel like there's not even any reason to do any of this. And it's not just city council. It's like third spaces where people jam on music and have food together. We stopped going to church, and that's okay if you're not religious. But I think it's a good idea to get together with the people you live near and sing songs and break bread and have deep, like, spiritual and philosophical conversations with one another, right? And maybe have deep moral life lessons framed to us through story and allegory and myth. Like, that's a time-honored thousands of years tradition that I think is really good for us. And if we want to leave the church, that's fine. But if we don't replace that fellowship and that sense of belonging, we're fucked. We're screwed. We have no outlet for any of that stuff. But again, when I frame this, people don't even see that there's a point. They're just waiting for the asteroid to hit. And so here we are trying to decide what the band sounds like. Is it communism? Is it socialism? Is it matriarchy, patriarchy? Can capitalism be fixed? Is it a constitutional republic or maybe a democratic republic? And like, we're all stuck in these things instead of, and this is the part where I'm at, is like, what are we going to do? Just lay down a beat. Somebody start playing and we'll fucking just start jamming until it starts coming together. We'll name it later. We'll let the critics name it later. The historians can name whatever we're building later. I don't care what it's called, but I'm struggling to find like how we get people to just move. And I fear, and this is where I'll land my plane, I fear that the only time the common people tend to care about this conversation, about the actual head cornerstone of civilization building, is when things get really, really bad.
Yeah. Well, that would make sense. We would have to hopefully think about it when things get bad. And thankfully we are right now, right? Like I'm at least grateful that the world as a whole is starting to wake up. I'm grateful for that. We might not be where we want to be yet. That's good. That's, it's fine. But I'm grateful for where we are right now because it's a stepping stone. It's one stepping stone that's going to lead to the next one. By doing things like what Jules and I and Shannon are doing every other Friday here, by things that you do on your page as well, Tony, having your lives and discussing this stuff intricately. These things are important and they feel redundant to us because we do it every week and we're like, is anybody listening? I hope they are, but they are. And it's important for us as the creators to stop and remind ourselves that it is helping. How many do you have now, Tony, followers? Jules, how many followers do you have now? Same thing with me. These are people. It's not just a number. And yeah, the algorithm might not show it to every single follower, unfortunately. But when you post content, there are people who are waiting to hear what the next words are out of your mouth. And it's important for those who are listening right now to recognize that the same is true in your own life. When you become passionate about something and you just start showing up for it over and over and over and over again, correct, those with the ears to hear will hear you. They will hear you. And these are the tiny sparks that we were talking about from the beginning here. Once that little tiny spark is ignited in your heart chakra space, it begins to grow and expand. And the more it grows and expands into a deeper passion for whatever aspect of this matriarchal natural order that you want to produce in your own life, that is going to become contagious to those around you, to first your family, your friends, then your community. And if you choose to do what we do here on this panel and start making your own content, you're going to see the same benefits as well. You're going to start seeing those little sparks igniting in each of your followers as they leave a comment, as they tell their friends to follow you, as they share your video. It's important for us to stop and recognize that too, because we can become overwhelmed of thinking it's not going fast enough. No one is hearing me. It's not working. But it is, and we've got to allow that space in our own hearts to recognize that. Tony, looking at you.
Fair enough. I knew that one was for me.
Yeah.
That's why I couldn't look at the camera.
Yeah, we are the divine spark. Exactly, Johnny. Like, we are it. We're the answer we're looking for. It's not Jesus coming down from the cross and from heaven to save us. It's us. It's us. And the more that we just keep trucking, I think, doing what we're doing, the more this is going to grow, the more it's exponentially going to have to grow because of the influence that each of us have. You've got your own, I've got my own, but together it's creating a massive influence over this world. I truly see that. As a seer, I see that. It is happening. We just have to keep the hope alive. We just have to keep going, keep that spark lit. Eventually it'll be a giant bonfire. Mark my words.
I really think that we're in the middle of like a new renaissance.
Absolutely.
That's what history is going to look back at this time period and talk about. And, I'm somebody that massively advocates for thinking local and returning to community and a sense of belonging. And I built an entire nonprofit around the science of human connection because we were trying to teach this one little town. We wanted to see, can we teach one town to relearn how to be a village and to connect with each other. And eventually it imploded because the national system and the overarching system is just not there yet. And I think that's partly why I'm here now instead of dedicating my life to journalism anymore. That stuff burned me out because it wasn't getting us anywhere. I think we're in a place where thought leaders and community builders and we need to connect with each other across the spectrum and start having these conversations with each other and quit trying to drag the horse to the water where we are, because the horse don't want to come yet because the horse doesn't know what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. I think it's incentive too, how can we create incentive for people to want to join, to care? And it might not even be us creating incentive. It might just be pointing it out, because there are incentives. It's just a matter of you finding what yours is and allowing that to be your carrot. Let that be what carries you forward. My incentive is I want my daughter to grow up in a world that is much better than the one it is right now. That's one of my major incentives. So if I can use that as my carrot on the stick, it's going to help me do it without even thinking about it. This is why I think it's important, back in the early 2000s and stuff, people were talking about making vision boards, cut out all these newspaper clips so that you have a visual image every day of what it is you want to manifest. Make a vision board for the matriarchy or the natural order or whatever you want to call it, Tony. Make a vision board for the future that you wish to see. And look at that every day. Put it next to your mirror in the bathroom so that you have to look at it every day. It's going to have the same effect that normal vision boards would have for you as well. Again, it's like when I was younger, I always wanted a Volkswagen Beetle. And then they came out with the new ones, the 1998s. And I'm like, wow, this thing's so cool. And I'd never seen one before. And then as soon as I fell in love with it, what happened? I started seeing them everywhere. And it's a good lesson in understanding that that's how this will work for us internally as well. When you become fully in love with the idea of seeing a beautiful new future, you are going to start seeing it everywhere. You are going to start seeing opportunities for you to step up and be a help in your community or in your family or in your friend group or at your work or whatever. You're going to start seeing more and more opportunities show up for you so that you can help bring about this new world. I believe that fully.
Absolutely. I love this conversation so much. I think we need leaders to step forward, and this is why over the last year I followed a lot of people talking about parallel systems and well-being economies, because there's people out there building the new world as we speak. It's happening. Parallel utility systems and information and internet infrastructure, food systems, homeschooling networks, and all the things that I tend to talk about on my channel. It's like this is people just taking the risk and being the new 21st century pioneers. And I think that's important, because we can sit here and philosophize and strategize and talk about these things, and we can get excited about it. But I'm an artist, and I've been in enough smoky 1970s cutlasses with Pink Floyd in the back talking about great ideas that never manifest. And then it just becomes an intellectual jerk fest of who's got the coolest idea for what the future could be like. And then it never happens, And so I think people need to see it. They need to experience it. Humans need to feel it, And that's why we do the things we do, is because it gives us a certain feeling, even if we want to intellectualize it. And so I do think that these conversations are the right thing to do, because it at least gets people talking about civilization as a whole on a big level, asking bigger questions, and then even smaller questions like, where do I fit in, and where does my puzzle piece go? I think those are huge and important questions. And I hope that people see that the revolution and the Renaissance, these periods of time were never 6 months. They're often 7, 12 years. Periods of Renaissance could be several decades. And it starts now, and it starts with those pioneers moving first, so that they give the average person the opportunity to experience what an employee-owned business might be like to work for, right? Where the employees are stakeholders, or what it might feel like to be a part of a food co-op that you can trust where your food's coming from, and it's at good prices. Energy co-ops and ride shares, like, we can talk about these things, but if people don't experience them, they think that it's some pipe dream that only happens in some other place with some other types of people who must have different, access to things that I don't have, not realizing that it could be real near them too. And you're right. It does start with these conversations. I'm grateful for them too. I still have hope.
Okay.
But begrudgingly, I have hope.
Well, again, I bring this up now for the second time in this, and I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be able to tell you anything more. But there are some really cool things happening behind the scenes that Jules and Shannon and I are working on. And that you're absolutely right. That's what it needs to be, is people who are willing to be brave enough to step out and be the first one to try something new that's never been done before. You've got to just do it. That is going to help to create that culture.
Like, how many musicians do you know that are technically good, can shred the hell out of a guitar, but then don't actually make any music because there's no passion and heart in them? They don't know what they're doing it for. Right. You can have all of the educational tools in the world about, like, the oligarchy and the systems and how they work and all the things, but if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, you're not going to get anywhere with it.
Right.
Facts.
Right. And that is the vision. That's the vision. That's what keeps you alive, keeps the vision alive, is having that solidified within you. Well, Tony, I appreciate you hopping in today. I think we're going to wrap it up.
Thanks.
We'll be back in 2 weeks. If you'd like to join us again, you can. You're more than welcome.
I will, and feel free to send me a reminder, because my time as a musician was not kind to my short-term memory.
Mine either.
You can leave it at that.
Understood. You tagged me in a video. Am I going to want to go on a rant?
What's that?
I said I was asking Tony. I saw you tag me in a video. I haven't seen it yet. Am I going to want to go on a rant?
I don't think so. It's basically what I just said. Like, we need to be the ones having an alternative. Like, you had mentioned that data centers are going to happen, and even when people go to city council doesn't listen, and then they approve them anyway. And it's like, our small towns are dying, and the leaders are running out of ideas to fix them. And so whenever some big corporation or some big money opportunity comes through, they're going to say yes, no matter what their constituencies say, because they really are out of ideas. They're hiring economic development corporations, making 10 and 20-year strategic and comprehensive plans that sit on a fucking shelf and gather dust and don't improve anybody's, quality of life. And so they're going to say yes to it because we, the people, don't have any other viable solutions, which comes to this whole parallel systems thing. Like, if we build it, then we might have some other thing that we can do or offer to curb the situation, or at the very least, in spite of what they approve, we can have something else to rely upon. But if we don't do that, then they're always going to go with where the opportunity lies, because greed aside, our towns are dying, and they don't have any other better ideas on how to save them.
No, that's definitely some of it. And then the flip side of that is, like, what happened in my city. My city is not dying. We're actually growing faster than we can keep up with. But you go in and look at who's financing the politicians that got elected, and it all starts to connect. I think we've lost ownership of our own systems.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a conversation for another day.
I know, we're doing the Midwest thing where we said goodbye, and then we stand in the doorway for another 30 minutes.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I love it. And thank you for hopping in, because this is important. Especially, we get to this topic, it comes back around to this a lot, but having the support of other men is also important, because we're having a big disconnect there, which I'm also working with other parts of my content right now to help out in that way as much as I can. But we've got to really start understanding the complexity and nuance of each individual on this planet and having grace for that and learning to work together again. There are your neighbor, your cousin, your family members, your friends, they are not your enemies. They are not the enemy. It's something much bigger, right? It goes back to that power and principality conversation. It's a much bigger issue that every one of us are victims of until we can awaken to it. Then we can start actively working against it, trying to build something else. So I agree. All of these conversations are necessary, as redundant as they might feel sometimes. I just hope that whoever's listening today goes home with some interesting things to think about for the next couple weeks until we meet again. Thank
Toodaloo,
you.
kangaroo.
Toodaloo, kangaroo. Anybody else? Jules, do you have anything to say before we go?
No, thanks for coming, everybody. This stuff feeds my soul. Like, I'm not just getting on here to talk because I want people to do things. This is good for me too. This makes me happy too. So thanks for being here.